Okay, tonight's shir is sponsored by the Zanjurian Mishpacha in honor of Stacy Zanjurian's grandmother, the yahrzeit, which is tonight, Margalit Bat Shilem. The neshama should have an aliyah, and these words of Torah should be l'schus her neshama. So we're going to jump to the Gemara in Chavav. We had one more Gemara about Roa and Gabbai, but I'd like to talk about the next big sugya, which is the sugya about Shviit. Not Schnitz, Shviit. So the Gemara says as follows: Am Reb Shimon betchila hayu karanos and osan osvei Shviit. So if we go back to the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says on Chav Daled and Beis, after listing all the psule edis that we just discussed, v'seichre shvius are also pasal edis. Amar Reb Shimon betchila yikarnos and osve shvius. Misha Rabba anasin chazal lekrozen son seichre shvius. So there was some change in the way we referred to these people that were pasal edis. Because they couldn't control themselves and they needed to sell the fruits during the Shemitah year. There's an isser to do business with Shemitah produce. And the Mishnah is coming to teach us that they're pasul d'Rabbanan as well. So the Gemara says as follows: Maika Amar, what is Rabbi Shimon actually, the Gemara in Chavav and Aleph. What is Rabbi Shimon referring to when he says betchila this osvei and then sochre? Amar Rav Yehuda Hachyomer betchilu hayu omrim osvei shvius ksherin seichrin psulim. Originally, people used to say if they're just collecting shemitah products, so then they're kosher. But seichrin, but if you're taka doing business, so then that's usher, right? What's the isser? What's the isser to do business with shemitah? Right, so the Gemara learns from the word la'achla, adin da'araisa, la'achla, v'lay l'schaira, la'achla, v'lay l'melugma. You shouldn't use it for medication. La'achla, v'lay l'kaivsa. You shouldn't use the fruits of pear shvius for detergent for one's clothing. You have to use it. There has to be some machlekes. I think we gave a shalashudish here on this. Some machlekes how to understand the Ramban. Is it just a din, a heter that you have to eat, or there's actually a kiyam mitzvah? It's machlekes, the Megillas Esther, and others. If according to Shittas Ramban is actually a mitzvah to eat pear shvius, or it's just a heter and teaches you that it's an isser for you to do it for one of those other benefits. Exactly. So the Gemara says. So originally, people were just saying oisvei shvius ksherin seichrin psulin. Misharabu mamtsiye mos la'aniyim, when there were a lot of people who suddenly just got very generous and were giving a lot of money to aniyim. Va'azli aniyim, and then the aniyim would go out. Va'asviluhu, and they would collect them all their fruits that they need. Basically, I just found a loophole and a way to, continue my procedure the other years. Just I do it by pretending that I'm giving tzedakah. Umaisu chazru leimer echad ze ve'echad ze psulim. So then Chazal came and said, no, they're also pasul edis. Kashu ba b'nei Rechava. So b'nei Rechava said, that's Hai Misharabu. If that was what happened historically, Hai Misharabu ha'anasim, that doesn't fit with the terminology of anasim means people who coerce, who force. Hai Misharabu atagarim mibayle. Rather, it should be, we saw what was catching on, we saw what was becoming popular, and people were continuing to do business. Ella, you're right. So the Gemara backtracks. The Gemara says that's not what happened. Originally, they used to say that everyone was pasul, both osvei shvius and sochre shvius, meaning not only if you directly do business, but even if you do it with this shtick through the aniyim, then what happens? Misharabu ha'nosin umayniu arnona, right? Which should not which is very similar to the Arnona, right? If you live in Eretz Yisrael, you know you have to pay the Arnona to the government. Everyone has to pay.
Yeah.
What?
The Roman collected Arnona.
Is that really where it's not a Hebrew word?
Probably not.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. So you see, that's the Gemara is saying over here. It sounds like a tax.
Yeah.
So what? So then, when they saw they were doing it to pay the tax, so then what? Then those people, we didn't want to say that they're possible. But then the Gemara goes weiter. It's not just that the Gemara said that the rabbis were sympathetic. Listen to what the Gemara says. Kidemachriz Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai used to announce, Puku uzro b'shvius. Get up. Listen to this, Rabbi Yanai. A Rav at the podium, or giving a drasha. Go plant during Shemitah. Why? Mishum Arnona. Because there's a tax. Chazul. So then what happened? Oisvin ksherin seichrin psulim. So then they said, there are a lot of people that are doing this with a heter. So we can't just passel them. So if they're doing it, if they're doing mamish schera, so then it's aser. But if they're doing asifa, then it's mutter. Good. But what we need to really understand over here, Rabbi Yisai, is that Rabbi Yanai is basically saying, Shemitah's, he's mater Shemitah. Yeah. He basically said, it's a full-fledged Shemitah, and said Rabbi Yanai, absolutely no problem, puku zro b'shvius. Meaning, without Rabbi Yanai, I would have said, okay, the rabbi said it's not their fault, they were forced into it, the government was causing it, so how could you passel them laidus? The Gemara is not saying that. Rabbi Yanai is telling you, mutter lechatchila. Mutter, go. The Rabbi Yanai is encouraging you to do this. To do this, everyone did this. So let's see Rashi. Arnoino. Mas shegoiva hamelech min atvuos, kach v'kach koirin min asoda l'shana. There was a tax that was collected from the king. This and this amount of bushels every year from your field. So said Rabbi Yanai, since there's a tax and you have to pay that tax, Poku zro b'shvius. Why? Zokt Rashi, Shvius bezman hazeh derabanan debat l'kedushas haaretz. Rashi says, Shvius bezman hazeh is derabanan. Now, I don't have time to get into this, Rabbi Yisai. I don't think we're going to be able to have time to get to this. This Rashi is a major chiddush. And this Rashi is a famous Rashi. Rashi, Sanhedrin, Chavavim, and Aleph. And this is a lot of what the Heter Mechira starts with this Rashi. Okay? Shvius bizman hazeh is derabanan. Question. But not only what Rashi says, why Rashi said it. So we'll get back to there. But Rashi, Rashi just said something earth-shattering for Hilchos Shemitah and for halachic ramifications. And we'll. Exactly. So that I didn't even want to get to there, but excellent. So the Gemara, right? So the Gemara in Yuvam, Rashi's against the Gemara. Rashi's against the Rambam. The Gemara has a machlekes whether kedusha rishayna kidsha l'shaita or kedusha shniya kidsha l'shaita v'kidsha l'salavo. Rashi holds paskins sounds like against that. Rashi holds that kedusha we paskin kedusha was butla. The pashtus is that we don't hold like that. The pashtus is that we hold kedusha haaretz was endowed and is kayam la'olam. Now, does that mean that therefore the Rabbi Yanai's whole drasha drops? Well, yes, according to Rashi it does. We have to figure out whether or not all the other Rishonim agree to Rashi, and was the only way that we can get to Shemitah D'Rabbanan only in Rashi's earth-shattering decision that, by the way, we paskin Kedusha Haaretz was Butla. We don't paskin like that. So if we are compelled to Rashi's analysis, then we're going to have problems. Rashi, if you asked Rashi, Rashi happened to hold like that. So therefore, Rashi said nothing gets off the ground. You're never going to have Kedushas Haaretz Bizman Hazeh Deoraisa because that was Nisbatel. But for our analysis, we need to know what other directions there are when we're going to analyze this din. Is there another way to get to Rashi's conclusion without Rashi's reasoning? That what? So the Gemara in Gittin, excellent. So the Gemara in Gittin gives another. So the Gemara says that Shemitah is Tali and Yovel. The Gemara in Gittin Lamed Vav. Well, yeah, exactly. So the Gemara in Gittin Lamed Vav, the Gemara says, Bizman she Yovel noig, Shemitah noig. The Gemara seems to connect Shemitah and Yovel. Rashi's not going with that Gemara. And now the question is really, why didn't Rashi quote that Gemara? That was a much better reason. Why is there no Yovel?
They lost the count at a certain point.
What? No, Avodim is totally in Yovel.
No, they lost
So
the
why is
count.
there no
I
Yovel?
think they lost the count at a certain point.
So we'll figure it out.
Isn't it
Start counting.
shot at Chak? Isn't
What?
Rabbi Yana is saying it's like a shot
No,
at
Rabbi Yana is saying, we're saying Lechatchila. He's not saying...
because of I understand that.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, obviously I'd rather... Rabbi Yana is... Rabbi Yana would rather live without taxes. So would I. You know, I live in a Shasad Chak also. You know, fair law municipality. What are you going to do? But, you know... But so the reason for Yovel is because Kol Yoshvei Alel. That you need all the inhabitants in Eretz Yisrael. Which, by the way, is not. I'm not sure that it hasn't already. There are ma'orim that are trying to be ma'or that it could be if you learn Roiv Yoshvei Alel. So it might be that we hit it already. If you think of Jews in the world, what Eitan? What are the numbers you think? Rove inhabitant in Eretz Yisrael, yeah.
No, it's not for sure. It's like about.
I don't know. It's also hard. It's mamish hard to know. I don't even trust these. Do you think that we really know about every Jew? Yeah.
And vice versa.
What?
I mean, there could be Jews that we think are Jews that.
Right. That's true. Also. I mean, but I would assume that like the people that are the halachic people know the. You know, when I went to the Ukraine, when I took the YU, students to the Ukraine. So the first thing I realized there that all of the definitions there of Jews for all the organizations there are paternal, and there are many organizations, but I would assume that there is some sort of census that would have halachic Jews in terms of that. Fine. So that's in terms of this Rashi, and in terms of a lot more that will Mirza Hashem have ramifications l'gabe the sugya of Mirza Hashem when we get to it about whether or not we can get to kedusha midrabban. But let's see Taisus or say. Top Taisus. Misharabu anosim umay niu arnona. There was a tax. Vim timer frek Taisus abam kasha. Vim timer umishum arnona hitiru lachrosh v'lizroya dehavya isura deoraisa. It's like Taisus, listen, I also don't like taxes. I also don't like losing money. But it's money. And these are Yisurim Deoraisa. So what's going on? Where's Rabbi Yana coming from? Zok Taisus, Yesh Lamer, Demayr, B'Shvius, Vizan, Azed, Derabbanan. So Taisus says, no, not a problem. Because it's only Derabbanan. Now, by the way, Taisus doesn't say why it's Derabbanan, right? Rashi went the extra mile to say, because Batla Kedushas Haaretz, which Abe wasn't happy with, which I agree with Abe. Why did Rashi have to do that? Rashi now put himself away from a lot of opinions by taking that extra mile. Taisus just says, by the way, there's another reason, Shviit is D'Rabbanan, but then Mark's were 100% right. And therefore what? Let's hold off. Inami, maybe being compelled by Mark's kasha, and therefore, Yesh Loimer de Pikuach Nefeshu, it's Pikuach Nefesh. Why? Sheshayel lahem amelech mas ve'ein lahem mal yishayifro. If they're not going to plant in the Shvius, they're not going to have any money. Umesim betfisas hamelech, and they're going to die in jail. Boisai. Now, look at what Taisus is saying. A fascinating application of Pikuach Nefesh, which, might even be Nagei B'Zman Hazeh. A lot of people can't make the fear of jail sometimes is not just about being in jail, it's about surviving in jail. And it's not just starvation, but here there are other people that unfortunately might get killed in jail, that it's mamish pikuach nefesh. Umeisim betfisas hamelech, v'achiyit me'b'Yerushalmi mishayim chaya nefesh. So Taisus is saying, even if the melech is not killing you, that's going to be pikuach nefesh. The fact that you're going to be in this matzav of being, put in prison by the melech. So here's the shaila. Rabbi say, why did Taisus disagree with? What's the reason there's a second daya in Taisus? So first of all, Taisus might hold that maybe I want to learn this Gemara, even if Shvius is D'Rabbanan, is D'Oraisa. Maybe I don't want to go with the first teretz and limit this Gemara to Shemitah being D'Rabbanan. Let's see the Rambam for a second, and we'll see that there might be other Rishonim that hold like that. The Rambam in Hilchos Shemitah, Perek Aleph, Halacha Yud Aleph, Rambam quotes our Gemara, and the Rambam says, "Misharabu anosim v'yitilu malchei goyim al Yisrael lasos mizbonos l'chayaloseim." So the Rambam changes the story a little bit. It wasn't that the king made a tax from the Sadeh, but rather he needed support for his army soldiers. I don't think there's an afkamina to how you understand the Arnona. Hitiru l'zro lem b'shviyas dvarim shetzrich lem avdei hamelech belvad. V'chein mishakafo sa'anas. Also, if you were forced by another person forcing. But let's look at the Ravid. It's not so clear. I'm sorry. Mishrabu anasim v'yitilu malchei goyim al Yisrael lasos bezonos. Amar Avram. Wow. Yeah. I can't do this.
I may have the source.
I probably have the source. Let me read it for you. Zok the Ravid. Amar Avram. Anu kibalnu ha'anasim arnona shenotel hamelech chomesh meperes haaretz. Good. So far so good. Misheino ovda gozel osam mimenu. He's stealing from the king. V'hamakomo shelo ichziku. This is the important line. V'hamakomo shelo ichziku ole bavel. Yeah, you see it's like 6 lines up. V'hamakomo shelo ichziku ole bavel. Says the Ravid, by the way, our Gemara is talking about areas that lo ichziku ole bavel. Why? Because the Ravid's saying, because if it's hichziku ole bavel, that's kedusha kitchel shaita v'kitchel lasilavo. What was the areas that were lo kitchel lasilavo? Ole Mitzrayim, the original Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael through Yoshua ben Nun. That never had Kedushas Haaretz in the Kedusha Shniya. That was a Kedusha that was Batla. So says the Ravid, it has to be that we're talking about areas which were Oile Mitzrayim. Now there are 2 ways I could understand this Ravid. One way I could understand this Ravid, which is going to cause major problems for both sides. Maybe the Ravid wanted to say that because the Ravid held Shviit Bizman Haseh by areas that are Ole Bavel and has Kedushas Haaretz. Shviit Bizman Haseh is what? It's no Raisa. If that's pshat in the Ravid, Rabbosai, we got serious problems. We got serious problems in Eretz Yisrael, Bizman Hazeh. We got serious problems with Heter Mechira. But that is one pshat in the Ravid. That the Ravid said must be, was talking about a very local, very limited area of Olim Mitzrayim, because otherwise you're in the full-fledged Shvius, which means Bizman Hazeh, he held his Daraisa. Mari Kurkus thinks that that's impossible. It's impossible that the Ravid thought that. Says the Mari Kurkus, I hear that you could say a pshat like that, but he's not going to ignore other Gemaras, that Shvius Bizman Hazeh is going to be the Rabbanan. So therefore the Mari Kurkus just thought that it was Dachuk, and that the Ravid wasn't trying to make this earth-shattering Chiddush to say that Shvius Bizman Hazeh was the Rabbanan, or was the Oraisa. But, as we see, you don't have to read like that. And the pashtus could be that the Ravid was like the Manda Omer, that Shvius Bizman Hazeh was the Oraisa, and Memela, the Gemara's Heter whole fell. And it was only in those limited areas of Hechziku Ole Mitzrayim. So if that's Pshat, so maybe that's the Pshat in the second day in Taisus. Taisus says, I needed a case of Pikuach Nefesh, because Taisus held like this other Pshat in the Ravid, or like the Shitas that Shvius Bizman Hazeh was the Oraisa, and therefore he needed a Heter on a level of the Oraisa, which would be the real McCoy of Pikuach Nefesh. But let's get back to Mark's Kasha. So fine, that's a good Pshat for the second day. But what's pshat with the first day? Shvius Bizman Hazeh is the Rabbanan. And therefore, what's with Rav Yana? What's the heter? What's going on over here? So Rabbi say, this Taisus could possibly be a massive Chiddush la'alacha. And it goes like this. The halacha is, we've quoted many times, that if I'm forced to violate a mitzvah's essay, to mevatel mitzvah's essay, so the Ramah Paskins in Siman Taf Reish Nun Vav in the end of Hilchos Sukkah, you have to pay Hoin Rav. You have to pay a very large amount, right? The din is, says the Ramah, both there and in Kufn and Zayin in Yeridea. If a person comes up to me and forces me to violate a los Haseh, to eat chazer, to eat basar v'chalav, then kol mamona. I have to pay all my money. Okay. What about, Rabbosai, majority of the halachas we deal with? What about Isurim D'Rabbanan? What's the halacha? It's not here. It's not an essay. And it's not a lois essay. So which one is it? So the Pri Megadim has a suffix. If you have to give up kol mamona for a lav d'Rabbanan, how do you explain the suffix, Rabbosai? What's the explanation of the suffix? No, it's not suffix d'Rabbanan. What? Oh, right. You could say one of two ways. You could say that, good. So one way I think that Mark's saying is might discuss the general shaila of Isurim D'Rabbanan. Does that touch on an overarching Isur D'Oraisa of Lo Sasser? And because the Cham's Koyach to Asur D'Rabbanan stems from a Dvar Torah, that Ad K'dei Kach, we need to work on the shaila of why we're allowed to be mekel. B'makom Safik, that the Ramban asks against the Rambam. How could you say that every D'Rabbanan has a D'Oraisa element to it because of Lo Sasser? Ask the Ramban in his Hasagas and Sefer HaMitzvos. Then how do you ever say Safik D'Rabbanan L'Kula? It should be Safik D'Oraisa L'Chumra. To which there are different terutzim. Maybe you have to say built into the D'Rabbanan was that b'makom Safik we're not gozer the din, and we didn't initially enact it b'makom Safik. There are different terutzim to that kasha. But the Yesod Adavar, where it stems from, might be that it's touching on a D'Oraisa. If it's touching on a D'Oraisa when it exists, when it's in full force, Shelo b'makom Safik, perhaps one should say it should follow the limitations of D'Oraisas. And just like by Alois Haseh Min HaTorah, you have to spend kol mamono, all your last asset, your last dime to your name. So too, says the Pri Megadim, it's sad to say, maybe when it comes to a lav d'Rabbanan as well. And the other side could be no. D'Rabbanan's l'chud, v'D'Oraisa's l'chud. There is no Lo Sasser like the Ramban. Perhaps one could suggest like that.
Every D'Rabbanan, but only D'Rabbanan that has the tam D'Oraisa, has it like it touches on D'Oraisa.
No, it would be every D'Rabbanan.
Then there's no such thing as being over D'Rabbanan being over D'Oraisa really every time. You can't D'Oraisa.
Well, that's really the Ramban's kasha. The Ramban's asking how could.
If you're gonna not even limit it to
No.
D'Oraisa, so what's the
I mean, I'm violating Lo Sasser. When I violate the D'Rabbanan, I'm violating what the Chachamim gave, endowed within this clause D'Rabbanan, and I'm touching on the violation of Lo Sasser. Yeah.
So there's always going to be D'Oraisa attached.
That's maybe what the Rambam holds. Yeah. It's only possible according to Shittas Rambam, but even within Shittas Rambam, to the extent that Eitan, I have to explain why b'makom Safek I could be mekel right now, because the Rambam holds when you violated the Rabbanan, you are going against the pasuk of the Torah of Lo Sasser, because that's what grants the rabbis the ability to enact. You're right. It's a pella de gazach. There's different nuschos. Rabbi Chanan had different nuschos that maybe there's an overarching deoraisa, but every case is not a deoraisa itself. But fundamentally, you could say that no, the Rambam Kipshuto would hold there is an aspect of a deoraisa existing by every takana derabban. Yeah.
Well, you can learn that Lo Sasser doesn't say it's a lav Lo Sasser you have to do kol mamona. It means this gives them the authority to be
right. That's what I was saying. Maybe it overarching the way my father used to say, the Zechron V'Lach used to say, it's a. I remember the first time I was a young boy when I heard about this Rebbe Chanan. We were walking in the streets of Yerushalayim, and he told us this Rebbe Chanan about Lo Sasser, and he says to me, he called it the umbrella reality. There's an umbrella. There's an umbrella of what Chazal have a power to do, and then there's the details of what's sitting underneath the umbrella of what's being hovered over the umbrella. But bepratius, it's not. See, Rabbi Chanan thinks even the Ramban thinks that that's true. Rabbi Chanan says that umbrella reality is true even according to the Ramban. But this is already details within how to understand. But fundamentally, on the books, you have a Rambam that sounds like the Durabanas are touching on Doraisas. How to work out all the details of the Ramban's kashas are good kashas. But it wouldn't be crazy to say that, yeah, every Durabanan might be Doraisa, or maybe not. Maybe even the Rambam held that it wasn't on a detailed case-by-case, specifically Durabanan. It was just that was what gave them the authority to enact the Durabanans. But the Pashas of the Rambam sounds like it's a Doraisa. Or one could just say, Pasha Pshat, that you have an Issa Durabanan over here. You have an Issa Durabanan, so now, where does that leave me? I have an Issa Durabanan. It's not a Lav Durabanan, right? But it's also not a Mitzvah Haseh, right? So one day, Taisus could be saying that, yeah, but it's not a Mitzvah Haseh. So anything that's not a Mitzvah Haseh is Kol Mamona. Or, what? No. A lav. Sorry, I misspoke. A lav derabanan versus a lav deoraisa. So you have, on the one hand, on the books, you have a lav deoraisa, and then you have a mitzvah essay deoraisa. Those are the two amounts of value, right? So now, it's true. We now are discussing a lav derabanan. So now we want to know, it's not a lav deoraisa, but it's also not a mitzvah essay deoraisa. So do we say, once it's not a mitzvah essay deoraisa, so then the din is, it's a lav. The din is, it's kol mamono. Or do you say, no, the din is for kol mamono is that it has to be a lav deoraisa. And anything less than a lav deoraisa is not going to be in the category of kol mamono. So that could be just the pashup shot in the suffix of the Prima Gadim. But Rabbosai, what's fascinating, however you explain the suffix of the Prima Gadim, which is Nogea la'alacha, what's most fascinating is I think the pashup shot, that's pshat in our Taisus. Now we can read Taisus again. Taisus asks Akasha, how are you allowed to be matir? So we suggested, perhaps the 2 days in Taisus is arguing on the most fundamental shaila, whether or not Shviit is Shviit Bizman Hazeh is D'oraisa or D'Rabbanan. Perhaps that's the machlokes. Perhaps, like the Rambam and the Ravid, we suggested a suggestion in the Ravid. Perhaps that's the 2 days in our Taisus. Now we're suggesting, no, absolutely not. Everyone agrees Shviit Bizman Hazeh is D'Rabbanan. But just because Shviit Bizman Hazeh is D'Rabbanan doesn't allow you, just because of that, to now be mafsid moment. To now be violate that Isser because of hefsid moment. The first day I hold, yes, anytime you're going to be mafsid. So you're right. Then it's mutter when it comes to D'Rabbanan. Like the tzad of the Prima Gadim, that only lavim D'Oraisa are going to be kol mamono. But anything else, a hefsid does make a difference. And the second day of Taisus holds, no, that we treat lavim D'Rabbanan like lavim D'Oraisa. And the shear of hefsid when it comes to a loisasim D'Rabbanan is what? Is going to be kol mamono. So therefore, the Taisus had to say, no, this was a different case. This was a case of pikuach nefesh. That's why it was matir. But just because of a hefsid, we wouldn't have been matir. So fundamentally, our 2 days in Taisus possibly are the two tzadim of the suffix of the Prima Gadim in terms of what we would allow. There is a Sanhedrin Ktana that comments on our Gemara, and he says, but how's Taisus going to deal with a beferish din in Shulchan Aruch? The din in Shulchan Aruch says that if you have a dleika, you're not allowed to remove the muktzah. So you see that b'makom hefsid, that the lavim d'Rabbanan are considered like lavim d'Oraisa. So it could be that muktzah, even no matter how you slice it, muktzah might be different, or the case of dleika might be different because we were worried if we were going to permit it for you or not. So however you slice it, muktzah might fall into a different category when it comes to a fire on Shabbos, what Chazal allowed you. But in terms of every other d'Rabbanan, what is the level of the hefsid that you would have to encounter in order to be matir the Isser? That is 2 days in Taisus over here, which could really affect a lot of shailas halacha l'maisa in terms of the suffix of the Prima Gadim. There is a kasha that the Ran raises over here. Before I actually raise the Ran's kasha, I want to raise a kasha that the Margolius Hayam raises over here. That in general, whenever we have situations that we need to be matir, let's say in situations of Hilchos Shabbos, right? If you'll ask a Rav Shaila, you ask, there's a situation that comes up. So again, it doesn't always apply, but often, an eitzah is to ask a guy. So the Margolius Hayam asks over here, why is Rabbi Yanai becoming so quick and saying, Puku v'zeru b'shvius? Why don't we first opt to go get a guy? So that's a good kasha. Just like any unfortunate situation where you have makom hefsid, so we should opt. You shouldn't violate it itself. We always want a guy to do it before, even if that's not heter gomer and Amir la'akum is going to still be an isser. But why wasn't that an option over here?
Yeah, it's not. If the svora is usher, it's like the result as opposed to actual mindset.
So I think what Mark's saying is a big yisod. So you possibly could answer the Margolius Hayam's kasha through a chiddush that has a lot of ramifications. I think Jerome, we gave this shir a few years back already in the last Shemitah cycle. I think it was in Shomrei that we discussed this shaila. Minchas Chinuch raises this shaila, and I think I brought a Taisus Rid on this issue in Avodah Zarah. I thought that Taisus Rid in Avodah Zarah writes that for a guy to work your land during Shemitah would be an Isser D'Oraisa. And it's based on the rationale of what Mark just said. The din of Vishavsa Aretz means that the land should rest. If the land should rest, as long as you're orchestrating and somehow that the land is being worked, so then that's going to be a violation of Vishavsa Aretz. It's not like Hilchos Shabbos, that it's the Pu'ula Hasura, it's the Maisa Malacha, that I have to be Shoives, and I'm not doing, and if I do that, I am now not being Shoives. But if I ask a guy to do it, so yeah, you're right, I might violate it in Issa D'Rabbanan of asking a guy to do a Malacha, but I'm not in the Daraisa category of doing a Pu'ulas HaMalacha when the guy does it. If the focal point is on the Aretz, so the Memela, even through a guy, one could suggest that you would violate it on a level which has real ramifications on halacha. If I just say in Eretz Yisrael, right, is it so pashut to say in Eretz Yisrael, b'zman hazeh, that, just have a guy do it, and then you're, at worst case scenario, you're only over in a Siddur Rabbanan. Not so fast. Maybe not. And maybe that's the answer to the Margolius Hayam's kasha. The truth is, the Minchas Chinuch wants to take it one step further. He wants to say that Noshim are chayavos in the mitzvah of Shemitah, of Shvisas Haaretz. So the kasha is why? Why should Noshim be chayavos to mitzvah Haseh shazman grom? So the Minchas Chinuch suggests that mitzvah Haseh shazman groma is a mitzvah when it's on me to do something that's time bound. But if it's a mitzvah on something else, like karka, that it has to experience something, but it's not a chayvus the lashon of the ritva. It's not a chayvus haguf, but rather it's a chayvus haguf. It's not my chayvus hagavra. So therefore, it's the chayva of that cheftza that I have to relate to. So that's not a regular time-bound mitzvah. Time-bound mitzvahs are your obligations that are limited by time. But when it's
does it only tolerate if you happen to own a piece of land?
no, it's your no. If I walk to someone else's land and I work the land, that would be my violation, right? So, but as long as I'm creating that scenario that the land is being worked, so then that would be a problem as well. So that's why it could be this kasha that the Margolius say, I'm just asked Stam. Why didn't he ask a guy to do it? No. There might be something very deep going on in this Gemara. That fundamentally getting a guy when it comes to these types of mitzvahs won't actually help and could be Shailas D'Oraisa in terms of Shvisa.
You can't apply that logic to Shabbos. We say, it's not your Pula, your Behem is going to be doing the Pula.
So the Avdecha Behemtcha, right, is all things that I own. Meaning I own my Evan and I have a Chiyav to make sure that my Evan is Shavis. I have a child and I have to make sure that my child is Shavis. I have no...
I own the cholent, and he's going to fix it, put it to fix the temperature.
Right, so that's Beis Shammai Shita. Beis Shammai Shita was that there's a chiyuv within the pasuk, within Shabbos, that there's Shvisas Kalim, And Beis Hillel say, we don't have Shvisas Kalim. That Kalim are considered inanimate. So too is, according to most Rishonim, is Goyim. Goyim is not, doesn't relate to me. It's a shaila how you darshan the word gercha. Is ger tzedek, is ger toshav. So that might be ger toshav. I might have to. Person who accepts upon him shev mitzvah noyach, I might have to. But the pashtus is when it comes to a stam goy, that was not included in the pasuk. So a goy to do malacha would only be an issur d'rabbanan called amir la'akim shvus, and that's not like someone in my family or someone in my property or within my atmosphere that would be considered my obligation in Hilchos Shabbos. Even by them, right? Even by my son, right? It's not so pashut. I think we gave a few shirim on this. It's not so pashut also, even if the Torah says, okay, so you're mechuyev that your son doesn't. If you remember, I think, yeah, exactly. One time, it was Erev Shabbos, and Akiva walked in, and I don't know, some mess with the cars, I don't know, with the carriage, whatever. I got in trouble for something. But so I don't remember what it was. So Akiva came, and he gave me the key, he was giving us the keys. So Tzvi chapped him, and Tzvi said, should I run out and go get it? So it was during the summer, and I was Makabel Shabbos. So I had a suffix whether my Kabbalah Shabbos is now chal on my son. When the Torah says, Ato vinchu vitecha, does that now say, whatever your Shabbos is, applies to your son, or not? So then, Pashas not.
I thought Masnera was, also.
What?
Your wife could be.
No, my wife is not my wife is definitely, I don't know my wife. That's for sure. She's definitely not nigger. Yeah.
We don't apply it there, like she's Makabel Shabbos, you drive to shul.
That's part of the shaila, meaning Rav Moshe writes that she's not automatically as long, so we rely on that Rav Moshe when necessary. You're right. Fundamentally, she has her own Kabbalah. But what about my Ben? My Ben is not me Makabel Shabbos. He never was Makabel Shabbos, right? He's totally on my shvisa. So what's the halacha if my Ben, or what's the halacha? I think this was another shir. We gave Nor Sameach raised the shaila, right? The Nor Sameach raised the shaila. I have a farm in Idaho. And Shabbos is over in New York at this time. So what happens if my animal works at that time? Frak the Nor Sameach, what is the Isser Shvisas Behema Tali on? Is it Tali on the Bailim, or is it Tali on where the animal is? And I think he thinks it's a machlekes. Bavli Yerushalmi, there was a big dian about that. About this fundamental shaila, is it through my shvisa, or is it that no, I have to make sure that they have their own shvisa, and that's an additional obligation of the Torah to ensure that they have an additional shvisa. But for goyim, I don't have a chiyuv b'chlal. They're not mechuyev in Shabbos. I just have a chiyuv to not be mezalzel on my Shabbos by asking them to do a malacha. Either what do I violate? Either I violate b'daber dover, or I violate some sort of shlichus that their action connects to me. But fundamentally, there's absolutely no problem with them being mechalel Shabbos, and they don't have any chalul Shabbos that I am now desecrating because of their action. But it's just a fascinating inyan that the Margolis Hayam brings up over here, in addition to the shaila of whether or not, what level of hefsid for the Rabbanans, is that the fact that it could be, the answer to his kasha is that fundamentally, Shvius doesn't have a heter of Emir La'akum, because it's karka based, and it's taitzah based, and it's result oriented, and that could answer, that yisod of the Taisus Rid could answer this yisod as well.
Is honest the same as what would
Pikuach Nefesh?
Yeah.
Well, so I think Taisus is adding a little more to the story that not everyone might have agreed. Taisus says you have an arnoina, and there was a tax over here. Yeah. So Taisus says, so what's the end game? What's the conclusion? You go to jail.
Right. No, but if they onus you to work the field.
Oh no. So if they're onus me to work the field, then Taisus wouldn't have a kasha. Right. That's mutter. Anything I do ba'oinus is not me. It's not. I'm not held responsible. Oinus rachmana patre. The Torah paters you if you did it ba'oinus. If he puts a gun to my head and he says work the field, I'm not mechuyev. For Shvius, I'm not mechuyev to give him my life. I'm not. If he forces me, he forces me. The kasha of Taisus is Rabbi Yochanan didn't say that. Rabbi Yanai says before the Goyim came. Poku's rov is Shvius, so you have money to pay him for his tax that he's going to collect. Fraktasis, why? Where did Rabbi Yanai get the guts to say you could violate Yisurim D'Rabbanan b'makom hefsid mammon? What happened to Yisurim D'Rabbanan? So Tosfos says Shvius D'Rabbanan. By the way, so Tosfos says Shvius D'Rabbanan. So the first day we're saying that b'makom hefsid, at least let's say it was a big hefsid, right? It was a significant hefsid. So then you wouldn't be obligated to give up kol mamon. Second day we're saying no, holds that it needed to be pikuach nefesh. Why was it pikuach nefesh? Because if you didn't pay the tax, ultimately they're going to throw you in jail. And that was the machlokes, whether or not hefsid would be a heter or a big hefsid of kol mamono would be a heter when it comes to isurim derabbanan. Good? Okay. So there's a ran over here that we're just going to be able to scratch. I like to raise the shaila. Paiku is ro b'shvius. It's on kuf tzadi hey. Amen kuf tzadi hey. In fact, the ran perisha ines lo yaya lahavir elo. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get to the ran, everybody say. Well, we're going to pick up with the ran. There's another chiddush of the Merkeves HaMishnah. Perhaps there might be, again, what do we have over here? We have, maybe it was only Shvius B'zman Hazez D'Rabbanan. So what does that mean? So we suggested Shvius B'zman Hazez D'Rabbanan, and therefore, if it's a major hefsid, you're allowed to, you don't have the same qualifications as Kol Mamono by Lav D'Oraisa. Or the second day, it was Pikuach Nefesh. We had two pshatim, how to understand that. Is that a heter even on a level D'Oraisa, Shvius B'zman Hazez D'Oraisa? Or no, it was within D'Rabbanans, but Tosfos didn't buy that you could actually say that you don't have to give up all your money for D'Rabbanan. In terms of the first daya, you could understand it's because of hefsid, or you could understand it a different way. Inami shviyas b'zman hazeh d'Rabbanan. So therefore, what? Since the rabbis were the ones who enacted the Shemitah d'Rabbanan, they have the ability to what? To uproot it if they find it fit. Hey mamru ve'hem amru. Perhaps that's what Tosfos is saying. Perhaps not. Listen to this Merkeves HaMishnah. Merkeves HaMishnah says a chiddush. The pshat in Rabbi Yanai was different than any pshat that we said so far. You want to know the pshat in Rabbi Yanai is? Who were they doing the malacha for in Shvius? They were doing it for the king, for the chayalim. Says the Merkeves HaMishnah, a chiddush nifla ad l'ma'od, that even exists if Shemitah b'zman hazeh d'Oraisa. Even if it was Shemitah, malacha and Shvius, schiras in Shvius, is asur if you are doing it for yourself. But if you're doing it for any ulterior motive, says the Merkeves HaMishnah pshat in a Gemara in Sanhedrin Chavav, that if it's not b'shvilchem, it's for the melech, that's not considered schora, that was asert. That's not on a level of d'oraisa. So it's a massive, that's the biggest chiddush that we've seen. Tosfos didn't want to say go with that mahalach. None of the other Rishonim wanted to go with that mahalach. But he thought the pashup pshat in the Gemara was no. The Gemara was talking about, the Gemara never said that we're talking about Shvius as B'zman Hazeh D'Rabbanan. The Gemara never said what Rashi and Tosfos assumed, that it had to be a stipulation that it was D'Rabbanan. But rather, the Gemara was saying what? That it was really D'Oraisa, but there's a new Chiddush, that since it was all driven by what? By the Melech, and it wasn't Schayra that was done for yourself, so Memela, Malacha and Schayra that's done for the Malchus, a heter from Sanhedrin, Chavav and Aleph, to be matter even on a level of the Oraisa. Frek the Ran Akasha, we'll say it outside because we're out of time. The Ran says, I don't understand. The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, Rabbi saying, you'll connect the dots to Purim. The Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin, on Daf Ayin Daladam and Aleph, if Chazal make a Gzeira B'Shas Hashmad, if there is a decree that they decree that you have to do a certain halacha, right? You have to even, right? Rabbi Eitan, you have to even change what? Your shoelaces. Right? Arkasa de Masana. Even if you colored shoelaces, you gotta change your shoelaces, right? Right? No pikuach nefesh. Frek the Ran Akasha, he doesn't understand our Gemara. It's Shas Hashmad, they made a Gzeira, so what's Rabbi Yanai coming to be matir? Again, not assuming like the Merkeves HaMishnah. There's a fundamental issue over here. It's Shas Hashmad. Who cares, D'Rabbanan? D'Rabbanan, I don't even care if it's a shoelace, if it's a nothing. Frek the Ran Akasha, this Gemara makes no sense. It's Shas Hashmad. So Mirz Hashem will pick up with that Kasha.
If you had your own money, they're not telling you to work the fields.
They're telling you to that
You then have to.
So why isn't it Shmad?
If you had money, you could pay them off.
No, but it was shot a shmat. It's you regardless.
So I don't have the money now.
No, but it was
Rav
shot.
Yana said I don't have the money, so they're saying, okay, so make the money. So do it.